Welcome to EI Cafe with Azim, in which he reflects on key aspects of life and business through the lens of emotional intelligence. You will learn how emotional intelligence can be used for your success in both personal and professional lives. The podcasts cover topics on leadership, collaboration, culture, building a positive mindset, and even raising kids. You will hear key life lessons and tips from the most prominent personalities, business leaders, entrepreneurs, EI practitioners, and executive coaches from around the world. So sit back, relax with a cup of coffee as we get into today's show, EI Cafe with Azim.
Marks the end of a woman's reproductive years and brings significant hormonal changes. These hormonal shifts can lead to emotional changes, including mood swings, anxiety, depression, and cognitive difficulties. Greetings to you from Colombo, Sri Lanka. This is EI Cafe with Azim, Season 11, and I'm your host, Azim Sahira, Human Capital Specialist, a Lego Serious Play Facilitator, an ICF certified PCC level coach, an emotional intelligence and emotional culture tech practitioner. I'm one of the lead facilitator at Luminary Learning Solution. This weekly show helps you to explore the impact of emotional intelligence on our lives. Through engaging conversation with industry leaders, innovators, executive coaches, and thought leaders, we aim to inspire and empower you. Today, we are going to talk a really important topic. Today, we are diving into a topic that affects many women during a significant phase of their lives: menopause. Menopause marks, as I mentioned earlier, the end of a woman's reproductive year. To have a conversation, I have a guest. Actually, she's not a stranger to the cafe anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome Amantha King, founder of Amantha King Coaching and Workplace Menopause Consultant. Hi, Amantha. Welcome back to the cafe.
Oh, hello, Azim. It's lovely to be back. What a lovely opportunity to come back and speak with you again. Thank you for having me.
It has been 3 years. You walked into the cafe.
So
it was episode number 7. We talked about stress. Is it a myth? Now we're going to talk about menopause. How cool is that?
That is so cool. And it's not lost on me, is it, Azim? Because obviously, as you know, I have Sri Lankan heritage. So to come back to the cafe and to talk about menopause is a privilege as much as anything. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. So, Amantha, as we had a pre-discussion and we have been chatting or our Insta messages, and we've been talking a lot. I have been you really transforming that particular space. You have a webcast on YouTube, you have discussion, you have conversation on it. Now, I don't know the other part of the world where you sit, whether it's new or old, but the part I sit still is in a unseen era, unseen picture in this part. People might know, but many men don't know. Many organization leaders don't know. Sometimes women also doesn't know about it. That's why I thought, okay, why don't I pick my good old friend to come back to the cafe and have a conversation? So Amantha, to start off the conversation, just take us through what is this menopause is about.
Okay, so it's so true what you say, and I know we're going to get into that, but cultural differences are huge. The menopause is really an anniversary. It's one day in a person who has female biology. It's one day in their life. It really is an anniversary when you haven't had a menstrual bleed for one whole calendar year. It signals the end of reproductivity, fertility, and it's a signpost, but it's preceded by a very, very different period of time called your perimenopause. And your perimenopause is where you can still be having a menstrual cycle, your hormones will start fluctuating, those fluctuations will cause symptoms. Here in the UK, we believe there are as many as 70 symptoms of perimenopause. So really that's the time when your menstrual cycles could be becoming longer, shorter, heavier, lighter, there's less predictability, there can be more uncertainty. And so then this period of time turns up where you haven't had a menstrual bleed for 365 days. On day 366, you would be classed as menopause. And the day after that, and for the rest of your life until you die, you are classed as a post-menopausal person. And what that means is you're no longer fertile. The chance of having a baby is no longer possible. But what it means instead is that you have a much lower level of your own hormones, and that is going to take you to the end of your life. But what we know is that in perimenopause, when your hormones are fluctuating, the symptoms can be so debilitating, Azim, that, it might not be possible for you to work. It might not be possible for you to fully engage with your career that maybe you would have done previously. So that's why it's such a hot topic here in the United Kingdom. Europe is following suit. America is definitely coming online with this. Is that actually, globally, we have a shortage of people in the workforce. And that workforce is largely, we've got yet less young people coming in. So we've got these midlife people who have so much to offer, so much skill, talent and ability, and yet they're stepping away from the workplace because of their hormones and the associated symptoms.
Oh, that's a huge set of information. Now, what I hear is there's a pre-status, then you have a post-status as well. So in between, is something is going to really challenging part of it. Am I correct if I get it right? Yeah. So on that context, now you mentioned a lot of changes happens. Yes, hormonal changes happens. I'm really curious to know, Amantha, like on that note, how does this a woman goes through this particular process? What sort of a mental health and emotional well-being looks like in this particular phase of that particular menopause?
Yeah, really good question. So perimenopause is where we get, first of all, a fluctuation of the hormone progesterone. And progesterone is very anti-anxiety. It helps us with our anxiety level. So it's an anti-anxiety. It promotes sleep and it helps us feel calm. So you can imagine if that's in short supply, that is going to affect our cognitive function. And by that, I mean our ability to recall information, our memory, how we process things that are happening in our lives. And let's not forget, as we're having children maybe later in life, I have an 18-year-old daughter. I've been very public in that I had a perimenopause for 16 years. My daughter's just 18 now. So she's only ever known me with my hormones fluctuating. And what I would say is that perimenopause is very similar to puberty, but in reverse. So if you have teenagers in your house, you'll know that their hormones are fluctuating because they're rushing in. Perimenopause is really when our hormones are rushing out. So we always say that particularly perimenopause can be more turbulent than postmenopause because your body's just getting used to these changes. But what we know is that there are biological symptoms and there are psychological symptoms. How do you measure someone's loss of confidence? That's not as easy as measuring someone's blood sugar. What we need to understand is that everyone will have a unique experience of this thing called menopause transition. 1 in 4 women have no symptomatic issues at all. 3 in 4 will have symptoms, and 1 in 4 of those people will have symptoms so debilitating that it is likely they're not able to remain at work. And in the UK, we have figures saying that 1 million women have left work due to the symptoms of menopause and the severity of it. So it comes at a time, let's also remember, children are leaving home. We may be looking after elderly relatives. We know that stress really robs people of the capacity to make their own hormones. And we know that if you're existing in a stressful environment, or your work's stressful, or any of the things you're dealing with, illness can feel stressful. Then those things are going to mean that your symptoms are probably going to be more profound. And let's also mention that genetically, if you have Asian heritage, as I do, I wish I'd known that. I wish I would have known that my perimenopause would come up to 5 to 8 years earlier than someone who is white. So all the evidence in the world is largely catering around white women who will, on average, have no more periods by the age of 51.
Amantha, curious, any particular reason, sorry for interrupting, any particular reason that Asians and the whites, they do have a difference on that? Any particular reason?
We don't know specifically, but we do know that it is genetic. And in fact, black people as well will have many more symptoms around hot flashes and temperature regulation and sleep issues. But we know there is something about black and Asian people, which means genetically we will get symptoms earlier, and usually more in a more profound way. So therefore, I'd like every Sri Lankan person, men and women, to know that actually our daughters and our female relatives in their mid-30s probably are already starting to have perimenopause. And what I would say is this is also an indicator of how many eggs you will have left in your ovaries, because that's really what this is all about. It's a declining number of eggs. It's a reduction in our fertility, and it's now the next stage of our lives.
Brilliant. Now, of course, this can cause a lot of effects to their mindset, right? And I'm really curious to ask, before I move on to the next question, about how we can really manage this mindset and the emotional side of it. Now, you mentioned earlier, most of the women in AK, they pull out from the workplace. Any particular reason for that?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest reason is that we don't trust our organizations. How many of our mothers spoke to us about menopause? My mother did, but quite late. It was usually me asking my mum about what was going on for her. If our mothers aren't speaking to us about it, there's little chance that mothers are speaking to their sons about it. And when we think about the workplace is still very male dominated. And so the reality is women don't disclose to their managers. Women are very reluctant to do that for fear of stigma, taboo, being sidelined, maybe being missed out on promotions. So we don't tell. In fact, 8 out of 10 people don't even tell their partners they think they're having symptoms. And the reality is this, that people will have up to 8 symptoms for 14 months before they connect their own dots and go, hang on a minute, I think this could be something to do with the perimenopause. So we're dealing with a lot of cultural turbulence, I would say. It's starting to change here in the UK, but women want to protect their position. Many women have fought very hard to get to where they're at in their careers. We've got the gender pay gap, we've got all sorts of things like that. So people aren't about to sacrifice what they've worked so hard for. They just keep calm, carry on. And it's maybe when they get home that people's relationships start to change, because going through this life stage can really drain you of your energy. But women don't want to give up the jobs and careers they work very hard for.
Got it. So what I hear is there are a lot of awareness need to be done around the world about this particular topic. And I think you have been one of the catalysts, and you have been one of the person who's trying to advocate this particular topic around the world. So it's a hats off to you, Amantha, for the lovely work you do. And that's one of the reasons I picked you to have this conversation. Now, let's talk about, we do understand. Now, you told the whole piece of it. Now, what are some effective strategies and lifestyle adjustments that women can use to manage this particular emotional symptoms and the whole aspect of menopause? And for example, like the mood swings you spoke about, anxiety, and you, of course, you mentioned about stress, and it might lead to depression as well. Now, here you go. You give us some tips. Give us some
Okay,
strategies
exactly.
for
Well,
people.
it's nice because I know, as someone who has a Sri Lankan mother, I know how important the foundational elements of nutrition and well-being are. In Sri Lanka, you're a nation that you do that well. The first thing I would say, number one, above and beyond anything else, is managing your levels of stress. If you are stressed, your body prioritizes making cortisol. It does not prioritize making sex hormones. So it's about, I would say, looking at what are the things in your life that cause you stress. Is it your job? Is it family? Is it looking after elderly relatives? Is there any way you can reduce that stress in your life and increase your well-being quota? And by that, I mean looking at things like relaxation, meditation. I think quickly after that is mindset. Last year, I felt so passionately about this. As you know, I'm also an NLP coach, and I created a program here in the UK, which I got trademarked, and it's called Empower You. I believe empowerment is very important at this life stage because we have a change of identity. Who we were in our 30s and 40s is not who we will be after our menopause. We will be very different. Maybe there are dreams and aspirations that we put on the back burner that actually now I'd really like to do that. So I personally believe mindset is really important. And I think that comes down to three things. Reasserting, what is my purpose in life? What do I want out of this thing called life? Second to that, what are the values that support me doing that? Thirdly, what are my strengths? What am I strong at? Because I think the menopause transition can sometimes leave you feeling weakened, can sometimes make you feel you doubt yourself. We know that loss of confidence and self-esteem are very, very common things that people experience. I think if you can turn that around and reframe that to be actually, this is an opportunity. I see menopause transition as an opportunity just waiting for us to grab it. And that is why mindset is the perfect antidote to stress anyway. I would also say things like sleep, Azim. We know how important it is for babies to sleep. Sleep is even more important as we go through life. Sleep is where we rest. It's where we make sense of the world. It's where we actually clean out lots of those toxic proteins that might be sort of settling in our brain. But if we're not getting enough sleep, enough good quality sleep, that's going to cloud our judgment for the next day. So I tend to say to people, we sleep in 90-minute cycles. So if we can have 5 90-minute cycles every night, that's 7.5 hours sleep. Get rid of blue light devices like your mobile phone, watching television late at night. That's just going to keep you more awake. So cultivate a nice ritual for yourself. What is it you like to do that makes you feel calmer towards the end of the day? Doing some simple chores. Go out and see a sunset, beautiful sunsets in Sri Lanka. See a sunset. Make sunrises an important part of your day because that helps regulate the body's metabolic systems. Food is really powerful. One of the things that absolutely must change for people navigating this time is to eat more protein. We need to eat anywhere between 80 to 120 grams of protein a day. That's women and men, because our bodies are slowing down a bit. Now, I know bread is very, you love it in Sri Lanka. You've got amazing places providing all of those naughty sweet treats. But actually, really, if we notice that we are gaining weight around our middle and it's the type of weight that's now starting to be unhealthy for us, we maybe need to eat more protein, more fish, more chicken, more plant-based protein, move more. We don't move enough. We've become very sedentary as a global family. So we need to move more, exercise. And when it comes to exercise, lifting weights. Now, I don't know how popular this is in Sri Lanka, but women here are really encouraged to lift weights and lift heavy weights. For example, I went to the gym last week and I was using a foot press and moving 95 kilos with my feet. So we lose muscle as we get older. If we want to have a long, strong life, we need to lift weights. So those would be some things I would say to people, get curious about, engage with, pick 1 or 2 of those things and be consistent with them.
I think that's one of the area many people, as in not religion, many people lacks, right? When we get older, we tend to write really give up our style because we are getting old. Why we have to worry about? We are going to go die. Yeah, of course, everybody's going to die. That's a different story. But then again, I think you really nudged a couple of important elements, right? You talked about the stress and what could cause the stress, and that can really lead into a different aspect of mindset. And I think meditation also can be a very good tool, isn't it, Amantha?
Definitely, I 100% agree, because anything that's going to reduce that that stress load. I mean, for example, do you know that cortisol hangs around for 72 hours? That's effectively 72 hours of not making your own hormones. So I always say, we can't be making sex hormones and making stress hormones. So meditation, as we know, leans into turning off that stress response. It's really good for your body, takes you away from burnout much more quickly than any medication you're going to take. So actually, again, honoring yourself, you can't be all things to other people unless you can, respect your own health systems.
So Amantha, we talk about what, as an individual, a female can do about that, right? Now, is there a necessary that she seeks support from a professional on this particular part? Because this is an important, I think this is unlike given a little from you, get a little bit of highlight on the medical aspect of it. How do you really, how a female go and seek a support from a healthcare professional, a counseling, a support group? I don't know, because I don't know whether in Sri Lanka we have support group, counseling, yes, but healthcare, yes. But I don't know whether there are specifically for this particular menopause consultant or something like that. Still, I've not heard in Sri Lankan context. So what is your advice on this?
Well, my advice is this, bearing in mind what I just said, I'm only half Sri Lankan, and I was experiencing problems 2 years after having my first and only child. What I would be saying to people is, do your homework. There are fantastic books. I mean, this will be available all over the world. There's a great book called The Knowledge, written by Dr. Nigat Arif. These are in English. I'm sure they would be translated at some stage or on Audible. But the reality is, it's about, you need to know the systems that you're dealing with. What I would also say is, maybe in some of the Sri Lankan hospitals, the first time a person might start to have these questions might be if they're trying to start a family or increase their family. If that's not happening for you, maybe you're not falling pregnant, that could be a time to actually speak to your obstetrician or your gynecologist or your female health professional, your GP in your surgery. If there's a lady GP, someone who's got an interest in women's health, I would say that is a first port of call. Second bit of advice I would love to give to people is, do start to monitor your menstrual cycle. Now, if anyone's got a smartphone, there are lots of apps available where you can track, how often am I getting my menstrual cycle? What is it like? Are there any changes? That's going to be so much more useful for you when you go and see a specialist, because then you can use that as your evidence. So I would say any, absence of a menstrual cycle, a speeding up of it, any changes that you notice, or if you're struggling to conceive or to, like I say, add to your family, I think that would be a really good time. And I would say to women, listening to the demographic of the audience we're talking to, I would say to women over their 30s, that would be the time to be sort of really considering, could this be the perimenopause?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for sharing that. Now, I really want to connect to the organizational context, because it's quite important. I think, as you mentioned earlier, pay equity, reduce the gap in terms of pay, more empowerment for female. Now, in Sri Lankan context, we do have women in management, women in logistic, a lot of organization doing whole heap of bring the leadership, women leadership into the top level in organization. Everything is happening. Now, the question is, what if these kind of subjects, these sort of topics, these sort of areas are not even brought to awareness? Will those things work? If it doesn't, what leaders and the organization can do to really understand this particular context of men? Because you said in UK people are leaving, and what if organization female employees start leaving? the whole investment is going to be in drain, right? So I just want to touch on that before we wind up the session.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, let's talk the language of business. And the language of business is return on investment and profitability. Organizations exist to be profitable. So I want to talk about this through that lens. We work with global companies, we work with national companies. We know from McKinsey reports and data that the most successful teams are the most diverse teams, and that includes having women in them, women of all ages, okay, and all ethnicities. We know that's what makes the most successful teams, diversity. So if we marry those two things up, menopause actually has to be part of that conversation, because if we're going to keep women in work, we need to provide environments that aren't environments designed for men by men. We need to create environments that support women so that women can be present in the workplace. So that might mean having, showers in bathrooms at the workplace, because if a woman is menstrually flooding or having some sort of difficulty, she can at least sort herself out and be back at the next meeting, and it's not a problem. She can be present. We want women in the workplace. But there is a very, very big financial gain to it. So I'll give you a case study example. We work with a global pharmaceutical company, and they had 27 countries represented, 112 different job roles. We came in and did their menopause culture work. And it is about culture, Azim. Create awareness is a culture piece. Developing managers is a culture piece. Writing policy and guidance is all about culture. It's not a tick box exercise. But by doing a 3-step process like that over a 9-month period, we reduced absenteeism by 30% across the whole company. And we reduced women over 50 leaving the business by more than 50%. I can't think of a reason why any company wouldn't want to do something like that. And that affected about a third of their global population. So 30% of all the people they employ were in this category of menopause transition, either perimenopause, the stage 1, or postmenopause, the second stage. Do you know how much retention of talent we saved there? £24 million worth of people talent. Big number. Now when people say to me, menopause, that's not a business issue, I think you'll find, if anything, retains talent to that extent. So I would say to businesses in Sri Lanka, you need to ask yourself, what is our backup plan if all of the women in our organization, and remember, Sri Lankan ethnicity is really powerful here. What are we doing to make sure that anyone over 30 in our business is not going to leave as a result of menstrual health problems, menopause, or mental health problems? So that's really why we go in, and we are talking to very complex workspaces, Azim. Rail providers, my colleague June Potts, she's in aviation. We're talking to oil, gas and oil offshore rigs. Because the one thing that you and I haven't mentioned here is the impact on men and families. Menopause impacts relationships, and if you as a woman are not sleeping well and having hot sweats at night, the man next to you probably isn't getting a good night's sleep either. So this is not just a workplace topic for men. This is a workplace issue that affects 100% of people.
That's the last point was just like mind blowing. I think I also missed that point, and thank you very much for bringing that out. And that will become a relationship issue if both the individuals not really understood the context what it is. So thank you for bringing that. So Amantha, we come for the last part of it, and I just want to curiously ask, what would be a key advice, one takeaway you want to give out for our audience who's going to watch this and listen to this particular episode?
Okay, so I'm going to be cheeky and give 2, one for the person and one for the workplace, if that's okay. So one takeaway is you need to know your body, trust your body, and support yourself. HRT, hormone replacement therapy, is what you can be given to help with symptoms. But I would only say after you have looked after the pillars of your health. Your health is your wealth. So work hard for that. And for the workplace, I would say value your people, give them the awareness sessions. People like myself are happy to come to Sri Lanka to do that. So give them those awareness sessions and really value them through what you do, not what you say.
Thank you very much. Brilliant. That's a wrap our discussion. Thank you for joining us on this particular episode about menopause and mental health. We hope you gain a valuable insight and practical advice for navigating this transition. Remember, it's crucial to stay informed and seek support, as what I also really understood from Amantha saying, be aware, monitor, regular checkup, keep in touch with your body. That's what it is. And if you'd like to get connected to Amantha King, of course, freely available on LinkedIn, and she's very active on Instagram as well. I'll just share all the network links available on the podcast note. Of course, you can log on to www.amanthakingcoaching.com. And at the same time, you can listen to Amantha's previous episode in the cafe, EI Cafe with Azim, episode number 7, Managing Stress. Is it a myth? That also, she gave 2 takeaways for me. I still remember. Right. On that note, Amantha, thank you very much for your valuable time. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you back in the cafe to have this wonderful topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of EI Cafe with Azim. You can check out similar topic in episode number 99, Leading with Human Energy Crisis with Dr. Joshua Friedman. Episode number 80, Do Emotions Even Belong in the Workplace with Larissa Garcia. Episode number 42, Mindfulness as a Superpower in the Workplace with Lottie Roberts. Episode number 43, Mental Well-Being. Can it really drive performance with Radha Ganesh? I hope these conversations helped you in your professional as well as personal life. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, stay inspired and keep striving for excellence. This is EI Cafe with Azim. And checking out from the cafe, my name is Azim Sahir.
Thank you for joining yet another successful episode of EI Cafe with Azim. We appreciate your time and invite you to subscribe to the show so that you don't miss out on the next episode. Write a review and even rate it if you please.
Thank you for tuning in to this
You can
episode
also
of EI Cafe with
follow
Azim.
Azim Sahir
Check out
on
similar
social
topic
media.
in episode number
We would also
99,
love to hear
Leading
from
with
you
Human
on what
Energy
topics
Crisis
you'd
with
like
Dr.
us to
Joshua
cover
Friedman.
and
Episode
even
number
who
80,
you'd
Do
like us to
Emotions Even Belong
invite to
in
the show.
Workplace with Larissa
We
Garcia.
wish you well until we
Larissa
meet again
Garcia.
on
Episode
another
number 42,
episode
Mindful
of
as-
EI
episode
Cafe
number 42,
with
Mindfulness
Azim.
as a Superpower in the Workplace with Lottie Roberts. Episode number 43, Mental Well-Being. Can it really drive performance? Radha Ganesh. I hope these conversations helped you in your professional as well as personal life. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, stay inspired and keep striving for excellence. This is EI Cafe with Azim. And checking out from the cafe, my name is Azim Sahir.